All right, let's go, because this one really seriously annoys me. Um, every couple months, someone says to me, as if it's some indication of how deep of a person they are, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. And they expect you to nod as if they just announced they've transcended the medieval mind and are now floating somewhere above dogma, incense, and men in robes. But let's be honest, spiritual, not religious, is thin, watered down. It's the scented candle version of metaphysics. What it actually means is, I know there's something more than all this, and I feel it when I'm alone. I feel it when I listen to music. I feel it on mushrooms. I feel it when I look at the ocean. But I would prefer that this something never become an author, because an author writes, and writing implies intention. And intention implies that I might not be in charge. Spirituality without religion is transcendence without accountability. It's just awe without obedience. It's wanting the experience of God without ever having to kneel before him. Now let's talk about the other idiotic phrase, which you hear all the time. I hate organized religion. And that one sounds a little more sophisticated. It sounds more wounded, more morally serious. But most of the time, it reveals a complete misunderstanding of what religion actually is, especially what the Catholic Church is. And to be fair, some of that confusion is justified. 20th century Catholic education in many places tried so hard to be modern and inclusive and non-offensive that it actually hollowed itself out. It pulled out all the metaphysics, it softened all the doctrine, and it replaced hard truths with therapeutic language. Instead of saying clearly abortion is wrong, or sex outside of marriage is disordered, or that marriage is between a man and a woman, it just mumbled. It apologized. It tried to become secular with candles. But here's the thing. You can teach that someone is wrong and still teach people to love that person. And that's Christianity. You don't water down the truth to make people feel safe. You teach the truth, and then you teach people how to love with it. The failure wasn't that the church had doctrine. The failure was that too many Catholics stopped explaining why. So let's define religion correctly. The word religion comes from religare, which means to bind. Religion is what binds you back to ultimate reality. It is not a random collection of rules invented by some angry priest. It is a structure of meaning that disciplines your perception so that you can see clearly. And as Bishop Barron often explains, religion is not primarily about moralism. It's about right praise. It's about ordering your love correctly. It's about aiming your life toward the highest good. The Catholic Church is 2,000 years of the smartest minds in history wrestling with ultimate questions like what is being, what is love, what is freedom, what is sin, what is suffering, and who is Jesus Christ. And you think you're going to outthink Augustine of Hippo while sitting on a yoga mat. You think that some weekend ayahuasca ceremony is going to crack a code that Thomas Aquinas somehow missed. You need minds bigger than yours and mine to articulate the highway to God. And that's not weakness. That's humility. Religion is your insurance policy against your own stupidity. It's the thing that tells you you are not the highest intelligence in the room. You're wrong sometimes. Your desires are not self-justifying. You do not get to define reality. And that's not oppression. That's oxygen. Now let's address the fair critique. Yes, there are abusive priests. Yes, there are arrogant pastors. Yes, there are self-appointed theologians who weaponize doctrine like a hammer. The guy who says something like, all gays are going to hell, he's wrong. And not because the church doesn't have moral teaching, but because he's forgotten mercy. He's forgotten nuance, anthropology, and the entire catechism. When you encounter that guy, you don't abandon the church. You pray for that guy because he doesn't know what he's talking about. The beauty of actually studying Catholic theology is that it gives you the confidence to stand in front of somebody like that, disagree calmly, articulate the church's actual teaching properly, and continue living faithfully without theatrics. It gives you interior certainty without becoming a dickhead. And that's maturity. Now let's go back to spiritual. Spiritual means whatever you want it to mean. And that's the problem. I have never met a single spiritual person whose life is deeply integrated. What I usually see is a bunch of drift, a boat at sea with no fixed star, from mushrooms one day to ayahuasca to LSD, back to mushrooms to ketamine to astrology to energy work to mindfulness to breathing to apps to alcohol, always chasing the next transcendent spike, always sampling, never rooted. And that's not depth, that's tourism. You're hopping spiritual islands without a map. And here's the irony: the Bible already explains the experiences you're chasing. The sense of unity you felt at a concert, scripture calls that communion. The ego death you felt on psychedelics, scripture calls that dying to the self. The overwhelming beauty that made you cry, scripture calls that glory. The ache you feel when you realize you are both magnificent and broken, scripture calls that being made in the image and likeness of God and also being fallen. The language you're looking for is already there, contained in 2,000 years of reflection. And if you read it like that, not as a literalist, but as a metaphysical map, you will find the same transcendence you chased chemically, except it doesn't require a substance. It requires surrender. Religion, specifically Catholicism, is not about pissing off a cosmic dictator. It's about aligning yourself with reality. It's about behaving in accordance with the structure of existence. And the price of that alignment, whether you believe in heaven or not, is peace here and now. Joy right now, this moment. Clarity right now. Devoting your life to something higher than yourself reorganizes your entire nervous system. You become less anxious because you are no longer pretending to be God. You aren't carrying all that weight. You become less fragile because you're not self-invented. You become more compassionate because you understand sin inside yourself first. And that is not repression. That's order. You don't need to hate organized religion. You just need to understand it. And if you're going to reject it, at least reject the real thing after you've read it, not the caricature you got in ninth grade from coloring books in a religion class from some teacher who was too scared to say what the church actually believes. Spiritual but not religious, it sounds freeing, but it's usually just autonomy dressed up as enlightenment. And autonomy is exhausting. Catholicism is not the enemy of depth. It is depth structured. It is transcendence disciplined. It's mystery articulated. And sometimes what we call organized religion is just 2,000 years of people smarter than us trying to make sure we don't drift off into the dark thinking we discovered the light. And if that offends somebody, fine. I don't care. But at least now we're arguing about something real.